I've had this question personally. Even I myself have wanted this change that they add into the game, add more of an incentive to ganking, a reward to ganking, and more of a risk factor to ganking. But I'm not gonna lie, the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized this change really only does more bad than it does good. Basically, I've seen the question being asked of whether or not relics should be droppable on death. And at like first glance, when I look at it, it's like, okay, that's fire, right? It makes ganking more like you get a more of a reward from ganking. The idea that you get relics and rewards from ganking other players that might have relics on them sounds nice in theory, but the more you think about it, the more you realize, yeah, that's just not going to be the case half the time. Because in reality, what builds have the most relics? PvE builds. When PvP players get relics, what do they get relics on? PvE builds. When PvP players have relics, where do they store the relics? In their banks. So the only people you'll ever find with relics on their bodies, PvE players. Where do most PvE players reside? In the depths, especially during hell mode. Think about old Deepwoken when enchants were droppable. What were people doing in the depths over and over? Constantly, if they saw you with an enchant or a legendary weapon or something of value in your inventory, they would gank you in the depths, wipe your build, sometimes even exploit on you and get you wiped off the map. So if they added relics being droppable on death into the game, what would just happen to those PvE players? There would be more of an incentive to gank PvE players, and I am 100% certain that most of the community will not like that. Me personally, I honestly don't feel remorse for PvE players because at the end of the day, they're a max build. They do high damage with either M1s or monsters, and they have plenty of ways to escape. To the point where it's like, if you wipe to a PvP player, that's just is what it is, Deepwoken. But to be sought out for in the depths because people are just naturally know or expect you to have relics on your body, it's kind of fucked up. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is kind of crazy, especially in the directory that Deepwoken's been going into. I'm not gonna lie, it just doesn't fit. In hindsight, if relics were droppable and people were actually worried about losing relics on death, they would just bank them. So in reality, it's low-key kind of pointless. You might get one or two relics here or there, but it's not gonna be nothing crazy. What they could do is buff the Void Heart chests and buff the loot inside them by giving them more relics. But in reality, the incentive to ganking is to have fun. And right now, people aren't having fun. So if people aren't having fun ganking, then they're not gonna gank. Other than that, I don't think relics should be droppable. I think that change could only do bad for Deepwoken. I think a lot of people would very much dislike relics being droppable. Not even because of like, oh, it adds more incentive to ganking, but it gives more incentive to wiping players in depth. Because even a Deepbound could have a relic on them. I've gotten a Moon's Eye from playing Deepbound. So unless Deepwoken wants these PvE players to have more of a risk when they're in the depths, it just doesn't make any sense to add it. But I want to know what y'all think. I want to know if y'all think whether or not relics should be droppable on death. Why or why not? Leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and some other shit.